Hello again, everyone. My name is Iconic Shaman, aka Joshua Bishop, and today we are once again running Mobile Suit Gundam Journey to Jaburo. This will be a new game plus main story % run. So what we're going to do is we're going to play through 9 missions as fast as we can. There's going to be a little bit of desync between my timer and my video. If this is the first time you're seeing this, my timer is going to be just a little bit ahead of the video. It's unfortunate the way it is. I probably need to get a better capture card, but this was the most optimal way for me to get a timer on screen and show you what's going on. So the main difference between new game plus % and new game is really going to be found here in mission 1. Normally in new game there are 2 enemies we have to deal with. For this one there's 1 extra. There is one other caveat we could have in mission 2 for a casual new game plus run, but for the sake of running the game, there's no reason to run new game when new game plus is practically the same game. So we are only allowed to use our beam saber in this part of the run. We can't switch our weapons. It's just easier for us to start the mission. The reason we can't switch weapons in the canon of this game is because we're in a space colony. Humanity is so far advanced that we can live in space. If we use a beam rifle or a bazooka on the colony, we miss a shot on the Zaku and we hit a hole and we hit a wall. The hole's going to open up, the colony will be uninhabitable, and we're going to put many lives at risk doing that. So we are only allowed to use our beam saber, and thankfully this is the only time we have to use the beam saber in the run. It can be used in certain backup strats, but it's just not very consistent with the way the melee works in this game. So all we're doing now is we're trying to get through these 3 Zakus as fast as we can. Ideally, we can get out of this mission in under a minute so we can skip the dialogue that plays at 59 seconds. But if we can't get that dialogue to skip, if we can't avoid that dialogue playing out, we can skip it provided we take enough damage, which is what I was trying to do here. I was trying to get that dialogue skip. I unfortunately didn't get it. So what happens in that situation is if you stand too close to a mobile suit that's exploding in this game, you can actually take damage from the recoil if you're too close and you don't have a shield to guard you from it. So I didn't get it. If I would have got it, I would have saved myself at least a few seconds, but it was a 6-second time loss to have to sit through that line of dialogue. So now we go into mission 2. We have our first significant weapon switch of the game with the Hyper Bazooka. The reason we use the Hyper Bazooka here and nowhere else is because we have a bunch of tanks and one certain aircraft to deal with. The hitbox from the shots fired are so massive that they're very good for dealing with the tanks, and they are very good for dealing with the aircraft. It gives us a margin of error one way or another. Sometimes we do get unlucky, and the tanks we fire at, they are aircraft as well. Sometimes they will separate if we don't get them in one shot. But more times than not, we will get them in one shot, and we do not have to worry about them. So it's a 2-for-1 special. That's what really makes running the Hyper Bazooka in this part of the run great. So we're going to deal with 2 waves of Magella tanks and that Zaku over there to the left before we can get to the next part of the mission. So what I'm going to do here, especially to deal with this Zaku, it's unfortunate it runs behind that rock. But the good thing is I can find it real quick. I'm not too worried about the way it moves right now because the hitbox, again, is so massive that I do have a margin for error. If it even moves 2 Zakus to the right, so imagine, again, 2 of it one way or another. If it moves another certain way, I can still hit it because, once again, the hitbox is so massive. So now, here's the second phase. We want to fire at this red dot that's coming. I personally get down to 1 shot because entering the 3rd phase of this mission, I want to have full ammo. That way, I have all that I need for a good, strong fight. And that's the quickest way to deal with the DOP right there, as you saw. That was Garma. We got him out of the sky in 1 shot. We quickly get him out of the way. If we don't, we're stuck chasing him until we get 1 hit or until the white base reaches the desert. So as you see with Char, we're going to use the hitbox. And as you see him here, he's dodging a certain way. One trick I found in this game is the ace pilots, after you hit a special or you hit a certain shot with your bazooka or a beam rifle, they will dodge one way. So it makes them open for a punish from a special, which is another reason why the Hyper Bazooka is especially good for this part of the run. But now for mission 3, we're going to switch to the weapon that is the bread and butter, or should be the bread and butter until we can't change for mission 5 or 6 again. But we're going to use it for 7, 8, and 9 pretty exclusively. I do. We have different runners who do use the beam rifle in mission 8. We're going to use the Hyper Hammer here, though, because the Hyper Hammer is the most consistent, safest way for us to deal damage without having to wait on a reload from a weapon. And it makes it so that we do not have to lean on the beam saber for backup strats. There is one time backup strats with a beam saber are not terrible, but that one time out of 9 missions is not a very good time. Well, 8, really and truthfully, because we have to use it as our main strat in mission 1. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of these 4 Zaku's, and I want to be sure that I clear these first 2 Zaku's very quickly. So what I'm going to do here to guarantee I clear them quickly is I'm going to use something I like to call the tether ball with a Hyper Hammer. So normally if you fired a Hyper Hammer straight up at somebody, or you strafe in one direction and you fire it, you have to wait for the hammer to come back to you before you fire it again. So with the tether ball, what happens is if you strafe in one direction, throw the weapon, hit something, and immediately strafe in the other direction, you skip waiting for the animation of having the hammer come back to you. It comes back to you quicker, and you're able to throw it again. So you just keep hitting the tether ball, hitting the tether ball, hitting the tether ball. Think of it like doing that out on the playground, and when you're hitting it real fast or you got somebody with you. That's basically the way it works. So we got rid of those 2 Zaku's very quickly. I got the good spawn to the west. And it's good that I got the good spawn, because the bad spawn would be it spawns further southeast, closer toward the white base, which means I have to cover more ground to go get it. And then that would make the Char fights happen in the northwest quadrant of this map. But since I got that, I know exactly where Char is going to be. He's going to be to the northeast. He has a bazooka this time, so I want to be careful how I approach him. I'm going to go in this fight with my shield up, because his bazooka delivers recoil, and the bazookas in general, we're going to see enemy units with beams and bazookas later on in the run. We want to be sure we have our shields up for those. He has switched to the Heat Hawk. He got out of the way after he had the bazooka out, so I didn't get what I wanted there. I know he switched back, but it's still okay. I'm firing the Hyper Hammer through the building. It is still hitting him because that's exactly who it's targeting. All things considered, I still had a decent fight. And now, to end the mission, we have to hit one certain gal out of the sky, which is piloted by Garma. You're going to see it coming up right here. Normally, we used to land on the plane and hit the top wing, but I found that it's easier to just float in midair, throw the hammer at the gal when you're facing it, and the hammer will just go through the gal, and you're done. It was that easy. It was that quick. You know, a lot of work has been put into improving the route in this game, improving certain segments, getting certain things done, and we have saved a lot of time. The first run of this game started at about an hour. Somebody shortened it to about 40 minutes. Then another guy who's been running this with me, PMC Trilogy, shorted this to about, 36 minutes? And then I got it down to, or 34. And then I got it down to 32. And then he got it down to 31. He got it down to 30 again after I got a better 31. And now we're at this part right here where I'm trying to see if I can get a better run while also explaining everything that's going on. So we're in mission 4 right now. We can switch weapons if you want. I do believe that all 3 are viable. I don't see why the Hyper Bazooka wouldn't be. It has a fairly good short reload time, and you have a lot of margin for error with your hitbox in this weapon, or this mission, excuse me. So either way is good. I personally prefer to go with the beam rifle because the beam rifle is the strongest weapon in the game. It gives you the most consistent, safest DPS compared to the Hyper Hammer. However, the reason I don't like to use the beam rifle later on in the run is because I can't guarantee hitting the strongest special in the game, which is that, all the time. and certain units are so tanky and deal so much damage that I can't really keep them at arm's reach and just safely do damage while also guaranteeing they won't do much back to me like I can with the Hyper Hammer. It's just not the same for me. So the beam rifle has its strengths, but in the later sections of the run, for me, the Hyper Hammer is just so much better. But this is a situation where, yes, it is better to run the beam rifle. Now, the next two missions, we don't have a choice, but this is the one mission where I am happy and willing to use the beam rifle in comparison to the Hyper Hammer or the Hyper Bazooka. So I'm going to take advantage again of the fact that I've learned that ace pilots do like to dodge a certain way after being hit with one certain attack. I see the Goof mobile suit right there, piloted by Ramba, running straight at me, so I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that I can hit it with a special and go from there. Once I do it, it will dodge, and then it will either keep strafing or it'll run toward me. So I take advantage of those behaviors. I get the good behavior I want, I fire the other special, and I get out of that mission fairly quick and in good shape. Like I mentioned earlier, Mission 5, we cannot switch our weapons. These next two, we have to use the beam rifle. We do not have a choice. But the beam rifle would probably actually be the best weapon to use for this mission if we had the choice. And the reason is everything in this game has distance to it, especially for the second part of this mission. Everything in this mission, I should say, not this game, but this mission, everything has a fair certain amount of distance to it, and we are dealing with AI for the first part, so it's easier to deal with the, I just say AI, I don't say ace pilots, it's just they're random units is what they are. Let's go with that. They're random units, so it's much easier for me to dictate when I can fire the special and guarantee it. So we have to destroy a few certain buildings, so we've routed this in a way where we start from our starting point to the finish. We can get the buildings, the turrets, and the mobile suits that we have to deal with all in one go. We're not worried about the tanks or the aircraft around here. They're just extra. We want to take care of the turrets as fast as we can. They are higher priority targets compared to the mobile suits because those mega particle cannons do tons of damage. We ran into the one Zaku that could be troublesome for us because of the bazooka or the missile pods on it. We can suffer a bit of recoil and we can have our aim knocked off for the special, but I was able to get the special off before it was able to fire the bazooka at me. If you want to better guarantee that the bazooka will not throw your shot off, stay further back, because if you get too close to it, then you're going to put yourself in that situation where he will knock you off your aim and you will miss. So we've cleared all the buildings out, and we want to try to clear the buildings. We have to clear the oil drums they're attached to as well. We want to clear the buildings with it because it's a 2-for-1 deal just taking out the building. We are dealing with the Adzam now. This is Makube in the air. We have to beat him by doing a certain number of damage to his main body and getting 4 shots to each leg. So ideally, if you can get in this mission, this part of the mission, with 16 shots, you can quickly take care of the legs, wait for the reload, get back on the main body, and then go from there. I don't remember how many shots you need. I think sometimes they're different. This game is weird like that. So what I've done is I've taken out the legs. All I have to do is take out the main body. I want to guarantee that my Gundam is locking on to the top part of the Adzam with the other turrets, because in that way I can just keep firing shots at it and go from there. Very good Adzam fight, all things considered. A little unlucky having to wait on a reload, but it could have been a whole lot worse. To get out of there in that time is pretty good. That was a pretty fast fight, all things considered. There is a punishing amount of RNG that we have to deal with, but it doesn't really start to dawn on us until we get to the later 3 run killers. And I say later 3 run killers because back to back to back, we have the 3 toughest missions in the game after this one. Because this one right now is the shortest mission in the game, bar none. So this is a mission where we have to take out a battleship, and then we have to fight the Guff again. So all we're going to do to take out the battleship, the back of it is sloped like a ramp so that we can get straight on it. We're going to fire 4 specials at it, and then we are going to get out of the way. It's good to be right there on the back side of the gallop anyway, because there is no weapon to the side that can get us. It is its true blind spot, and even that big machine gun on the back of it, or that big missile turret on the back of it, it should be, not a machine gun, it's a missile turret. That big turret on the back cannot hurt us. It cannot. Because for some reason it doesn't fire even though we're right in its grill. So what I'm going to do here as well is I'm going to call Kai for support. He can be a little useful. Sometimes he will miss shots, but the shots he does hit can be very helpful. So I'm trying to get these specials on Ramba to get out of there, and once I hear a certain dialogue and I know the shield is broken, we're going to go from there. Didn't get the fight I wanted if I wanted the ideal fight, but I still got a very good fight, all things considered. So, once again, we meet Run Killer 1, Run Killer 2, Run Killer 3. And if you think you've had a great run at this point in the game right here, these 3 missions like to step up and say, well, if you die here, which that can happen very easy, you will lose. And we like to make sure of it. So, for marathons, normally, there is a strat that we don't want to go for, which is the strat that you're fixing to see right here. So, what we do in the speedrun is we have a intentional damage strat where we let the enemy units do damage to us enough in the first and second phase that we can actually clear out Zaku spawning, extra Zaku spawning, or any Zaku spawning for the second phase. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to boost to the northwest where I know 2 of the 3 DOMs are. The other one is to the southwest. The safer strat would be to go southwest and then just beat the fight straight up in a marathon strat, because all things considered, to get a slow Mission 7 is not going to kill us during a marathon with the RNG, because we can deal with the extra Zaku spawns with the tetherball hammer strat. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to let these DOMs beat me up. And the good thing here is that Kai and Hayato, the reason we can get out of here so quick, they do deal with the DOM right by the white base, so we just get enough damage down on the other 2, one of the other 2 DOMs to help them. So what I'm doing here to try to skip this second phase, because normally all 3 of them will charge at me, what I'm trying to do to make sure that they just leave me alone and go to the next part, and I don't really get my shield up here. I don't know what happened to my controller. I couldn't move, I couldn't block for some reason, I don't know what happened. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid the 3 DOMs enough so that they start heading for the white base and they just completely ignore me. And once they've done that, I'm just now going to ambush them. And they won't turn on me. Well, some of them will. If they're looking dead at me, if one of them looks dead at you, they will actually start firing and engaging on you. But when they're getting hit from behind, they know something's hitting them, but they don't know what. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of all these DOMs carefully. Now I know this one has figured out that I'm firing, but it was the one that I did damage to earlier, or maybe it was the one Kai and Hayato got earlier. Either way, I got rid of 2 of them fairly quickly, so all I have to do, knowing where my health is at, knowing another Zaku is not here, is I have to find the 3rd one. And knowing that I have Kai and Hayato here, I will actually call the support, because that DOM is right there in their firing range, and so they are helpful. And as you see, that gun tank to my right guaranteed the kill. So your supports actually can be useful because they took care of that DOM faster than I did. And because I had low enough damage, we didn't have any Zaku spawn. Every one of them were cleared. I only had to deal with those 3 DOMs. And that's the fastest, most optimal way to do the damage strat. However, it is super risky, and you are counting on the black tri-stars not turning on you and following you all the way to the back of the map. So, Mission 8 here, I do have PMC who likes to run the beam rifle for this because he values the safety, he doesn't mind waiting for the reload, and he somehow gets god luck toward the end of the runs that dirty bastard. No, I'm just kidding, PMC. I love you. I love you. I love you, PMC. No hate. No hate. I love you. I love you. But I do question how you get so lucky in 7, 8, and 9. But, so in Mission 8, what happens here is we have 3 Gogs and mini Zagoks and more Gogs after that to deal with. But we're going to start with the Gogs here. They are very tanky. They are very powerful. But what really hurts against us is to have them fire the Mega Particle Cannon because it knocks us off our aim and melee attacks. So we need to be mindful of where they're at. So a safe strat I've developed is just to do it what PMC used to do, which is strafe in a certain direction, throw the Hyper Hammer at them, and then strafe back in the other direction. If I get behind them, I'm in the clear. But what I kind of want to do here with these 3 is I kind of want to keep everything in front of me, because that way I can see what the other Gogs are doing. So I clear the first one, and see if I take my eyes off the other one, I now can't see if he's hitting me with the Hyper Particle Cannon, or if he's hitting me with a missile, or if he's moving in close. Doing what I'm doing right here, moving one way or another, will allow me to see exactly what that other Gog is doing, keeping everything in front of me. So once I get that second one down, I know the third one is free, so I can be a little more risky with it. I still want to be careful because it can fire the Mega Particle Cannon. I don't want it to do that. I want it to stay at bay. I want it to leave me alone. And seeing as it's going to take its sweet time turning itself around and I can get to its back, I'm still going to do exactly what I'm doing right here. If it moves closer, I'm going to move further back. If it moves back, I'm going to move closer to it. I'm just trying to keep myself at a certain distance the whole time. And if you got through that first part just fine, which I'm at somewhat low health because the Hyper Particle Cannons and the missiles were doing a number on me, I want to be careful with this part right here because we enter the part that I hate with the Zagoks. So you can actually beat these Zagoks. They have about as much health as a Zaku too. The Tetherball strat is really good for taking care of them. The risk of getting the Tetherball strat against them is you're counting on them not firing their beams, which even if you get close enough to them, most units will switch to their melee. The Zok, the Zagok. The Zok is a different unit that we'll deal with later on. The Zagok fires beams almost no matter where it's at, and just says nope if you try to get close enough to it, which is why that first Zagok I will actually call on Kai and Hayato to help me out. They will actually and can actually deal enough damage or provide enough of a distraction that I can get through the first one with ease. So a little route difference I did here is running this game enough has taught me that the Zagok that I used to go for way out in the corner, it doesn't fire on us, it just tries to get to the base. So what I will do is instead I'll catch up with the Gog right there. Sometimes it stays in the corner, but I don't count on it. Sometimes it will actually be right by the dock where the white base is. So what I did this time is I went over to the Gog, I caught up with it, I took it out, and then as soon as I turned around, that Zagok that spawned all the way out in the corner had made its way to the dock. So I was able to just take care of the Gog, turn around, knock out the last Zagok, and go from there. So now we enter Mission 9, which is Jaburo. I say Jaburo for some reason. Jaburo. I don't think there's any difference. You know, tomato, tomato. I think I've heard it called both ways, but I want to call it the way that's consistent with everybody, which I believe is Jaburo. We switched to the Hyper Hammer for the last time because the Hyper Hammer is especially helpful for the final boss fight. And because for most of this run, aside from the final and most difficult fight in the game, it can be, I should say, it can be more difficult than the Black Tri-Stars fight because you're asking for everything to go your way while also having to deal with the fact that he moves faster than normal. The only downside to this mission is that part, but there can be something annoying that happens in this first phase. So what we're going to do is we have 6 mobile suits, no, I think it's 7. It's a bunch of Zakus and one Act guy. we're going to run up to the entry point where they're coming from. We're going to take care of them with the Hyper Hammer and move on from there. We are going to quickly get them, and as you see what this Zaku is doing, it does want to back up, and sometimes we knock it back far enough. If it strafes in the corner at the far back, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eyes off of it and switch targets to someone else that's coming. If it's the last one there, then we're just going to have to wait for it to come out. So all I'm doing is I'm trying to take care of these Zakus as they come up. I do accidentally lock onto the Act guy right here. Excuse me. I do accidentally lock onto the Act guy, and I'm trying to get onto that or the Zaku. And when I see the Zaku pull out the Heat Hawk on me, I know I'm in bad shape. So again, I'm just trying to keep distance, but I'm also trying to keep my focus on the Act guy while also hitting the Zaku for every free shot I can get. So I take out both units at once. I don't know what happened there. Wow, frames dropped. First time I've seen that. We take out those mobile suits. We don't bother calling Kai and Hayato for support. They say they will support, but they're so far back enough that all they're really doing is just watching me throw a mace at somebody and just watching them die in glorious explosions while I go full man mode and take care of business. Club Banger season finally arrives in time for the second phase of this mission. So what I'm going to do is similar to what happened in mission 3. We have to destroy a certain number of mobile suits to bring Char out, and you have to be careful with that pillar right there. If you move too close to that pillar or you move in a certain direction, if you've seen PMC Trilogy run this game, he likes to do a certain glitch toward the end of the run, always, depending on how quickly he beats the Zok and if he's in good shape enough to do it. So, I take care of those two units, the Zaku and the At guy, and same thing lining up over here, a Zaku and an At guy. We have to go all the way to the other side of the map to get those two, and then we have to go all the way back to where we were to run into Char. So, we're going to use the tetherball strat as much as we can against these 4 units because, again, it's just the fastest way of dealing damage, the most consistent way of dealing damage, shortens the animation for the hammer coming back to us. So we take care of that one. We get this Act guy right here. We look at our health. We want to make sure we're in good shape. We definitely want to make sure that after we take care of these units, we be mindful of where Char is at because he can actually start firing on us further than we actually are. Because when he sees us, he's going to start throwing Hail Mary shots no matter where he's at. So when I get this second boost ready to go, I see beams right there, so I know exactly where he's at. I know he's to the left. Sometimes he could show up to the right. The beams tell you where he's at because he's in a Zagat. So he can sometimes switch to melee. More times than not, he probably will just go to his beams. And for some reason, he boosted all the way up there, which is, I'm thinking, wow, that's unlucky. But he went for the melee special, and he moves so fast is the only other annoying thing about him. So you kind of have to keep eyes on him. If you can keep him in front of you, you have a good shot. If you can't keep him in front of you, you better quickly find him because otherwise, he's probably going to do a ton of damage to you. But I get a good fight there, all things considered, despite some weird movement. And now we go to the hallway part of this run. I think it's like, I call it phase 2.5 because it's not really a true third phase. These mobile suits can fire at you, but they do negligible damage. All we're doing is we're meeting Char at a certain pool of water. I don't know if it's a lake or anything or the ocean, but we run into him here. We don't have to fire a shot. After we cross a certain point, we see the dialogue, or we hear the dialogue. We can't see dialogue, Josh. Come on now. We hear the dialogue, and we don't have to do anything, and now we enter the Zok fight. Look at this thing. It's so massive. We need to be careful. The thing does a lot of damage. I didn't even know it could fire through that part of the wall. So I'm sitting there holding the guard up. I didn't get to land on the side optimally like I wanted, but I did manage to still get up to it. And once it started blocking, all I do is I get behind it. It only moves slightly faster than the GOG, so getting behind it and using the tetherball strat is good. This is the only ace pilot that using the tetherball strat against is actually useful and actually worth running. Because it's so big and again it moves so slow. So I'm sitting here, I got it where I wanted, it's blocking up, it's not moving, I get good RNG. So once I see the thing start blowing up, I just back away from it, and then I try to do the PMC strat. I try to style on it and watch it blow up. I get part of it, and then I lose where I was. It's unfortunate, and time will end when the screen fades to black, and I do think it would have been a 29:47. I split late in real time, but I'm okay with reporting this as a 29:48. A sub 30 run for something like this. It's incredible how far this record has come in just the past week. PMC and I have been grinding this game like madmen, and to say that we've had so many time improvements, so many record improvements due to routes and just in general good luck, it's amazing. But anyway, that was Mobile Suit Gundam Journey to Jaburo. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope one day you too will get to learn the values of Gundam done quick.